On December the 2nd, Pope Francis arrived in Cyprus. He is the second pope to visit the island after Benedict XVI. In his first meeting with the Catholic community, he invited them to follow in the footsteps of St. Barnabas and the builders of fraternity. Let there be no walls in the Catholic Church. The second day of Pope Francis's visit to Cyprus was under the sign of ecumenism. The Pope met with His Beatitude Chrysostomos II, Orthodox Archbishop of Cyprus, and the Holy Synod. In the afternoon, ecumenical prayer with migrants. In Cyprus, Christianity has ancient roots dating back to the time of the Apostles. Here the faith landed with Barnabas, Paul, and Lazarus. Today the small Christian community presents itself as a tapestry of languages and cultures and faces the challenges of dialogue, ecumenism, immigration, and peace. Saturday, November 27th, with the solemn entrance of Brother Francesco Patton, Custos of the Holy Land, in Bethlehem, the celebrations of Advent in the Holy Land opened in anticipation of the Christmas holidays. On Sunday 28th, the Custos presided over the Mass of the first Sunday of Advent. Pope Francis, the second pope to make an apostolic journey to Cyprus and Greece, landed today, Thursday, December the 2nd, in Larnaca. For Christians, this is the island of Barnabas, Paul, and Lazarus. At 3 p.m. local time, the plane carrying Pope Francis landed at Larnaca International Airport, where he was welcomed by the Apostolic Nuncio to Cyprus, His Excellency Archbishop Adolfo Tito Iana, the religious authorities of the Holy Land, and Anita Demetriou, President of the House of Representatives of Cyprus. After meeting with religious and civil authorities, Pope Francis moved on to Nicosia, to the Maronite Cathedral of Our Lady of Grace. The pontiff arrives in an island divided in two since 1974, the year of the Turkish invasion of the northern part of Cyprus. Even the capital, Nicosia, is cut in two by the so-called Green Line. In the cathedral, the Holy Father met with religious men and women, catechists, associations, and ecclesial movements of Cyprus. The motto of the Pope's visit to Cyprus is "Comfort us in faith." It is inspired by the Apostle Barnabas, patron of the island, whose name can be translated as Son of Consolation. To welcome him, there was His Eminence Cardinal Beshara Boutros Rai, Patriarch of Antioch of the Maronites, who spoke about the Maronite presence on the island. After listening to representatives of local communities, Pope Francis addressed a word of comfort and closeness in prayer to all. I share my joy of visiting this land, walking as a pilgrim in the footsteps of the great apostle Barnabas, a son of this people, a disciple in love with Jesus, an intrepid proclaimer of the gospel who, passing among the nascent Christian communities, saw God's grace at work. He rejoiced and exhorted everyone to remain with a resolute heart, faithful to the Lord. I come with the same desire, to see God's grace at work in your church and in your land, to rejoice with you in the wonders the Lord works, and to exhort you to persevere always without growing weary, without ever becoming discouraged. I look at you and see the richness of your diversity. I wish you always to be a patient church, discerning, accompanying and integrating, and a fraternal church, making room for the other, discussing but remaining united.
Continuate a pregare per me perché ho bisogno. Vi benedica Dio Onnipotente, Padre, Figlio, Spirito Santo.
The second day of Pope Francis's trip to the island of Cyprus opened under the sign of ecumenical dialogue. The first meeting was at the Orthodox Archbishopric for a courtesy visit to His Beatitude Chrysostomos II, Orthodox Archbishop of Cyprus. Following in the Orthodox Cathedral of Nicosia, the pontiff met with the Holy Synod, the highest authority of the autocephalous Orthodox Church of Cyprus. Words and gestures of great value for the communion between the two churches resounded. Pope Francis then reached the GSP Stadium for the Eucharistic celebration. Approximately 10,000 faithful from local communities attended, along with the Catholic ordinaries of the Holy Land. His Beatitude Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Patriarch of Jerusalem of the Latins, addressed a welcome greeting to the Pope. May Cyprus become for the other churches a model of unity and harmony, of encounter and sincere friendship. It is precisely this small island, in fact, though wounded by so many divisions, also brings with it light and hope.
Sono io che desidero ringraziare tutti voi. Domani mattina.
At the end, also the greeting of Pope Francis. I would like to thank all of you. Here in Cyprus, I'm breathing a little of that atmosphere typical of the Holy Land, where the antiquity and variety of Christian traditions enrich the pilgrim. This does me good, and it is good to meet communities of believers who live the present with hope, open to the future, and share this horizon with the most needy. In the afternoon, one of the most anticipated encounters. Ecumenical prayer with migrants in the Franciscan Church of the Holy Cross, located within the ancient city walls of Nicosia. The back wall borders the UN buffer zone. After listening to the testimonies of some migrants, the Pope wanted to denounce the new slavery. We complain when we read the stories of the lagers of the last century, those of the Nazis, those of Stalin. And we complain, how did this happen? Brothers and sisters, it's happening today. When the barbed wire not to let in the refugee, the one who comes to ask for freedom, bread, help, brotherhood, joy, we cannot be silent and look away. At the end of this moment of prayer and encounter, everyone recited the Our Father in their own language. It has been a great joy, said Pope Francis, to find myself here with you and to conclude my visit to Cyprus with this prayer meeting. From Jerusalem to Cyprus, the island of Barnabas, Paul, Lazarus, and the first Christians. The book of the Acts of the Apostles narrates that the Christians who had scattered because of the persecution that broke out after the martyrdom of Stephen had arrived as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Antioch, where there were flourishing Jewish communities. Cyprus has always been of great importance because it was very rich in copper. Since there was this natural wealth, all peoples wanted it, beginning with Syria, then Egypt, Persia, all peoples. A very long story, but for us, what counts is the story of the beginning of evangelization. The Acts of the Apostles narrate that in Antioch on the Orontes there was a large community of prophets and doctors. The most important of these was Barnabas, who was a Levite, a native of Cyprus. The first deeds of Barnabas are linked to Paul, who was accredited to the apostles, who at first feared him precisely by the Levite of Cyprus. He took the apostle of the Gentiles with him and introduced him to the community of Jerusalem, telling them how during the journey they had made together, the Lord had spoken to him, as had happened on the road to Damascus. In Cyprus there is the tomb of Barnabas, which is still venerated. Even though the island is divided at the moment, you can pass through the part where there is Salamis and where there is the tomb of Barnabas. There are also signs of the passage of St. Helen on the island. St. Helena, when she found the cross again, she wanted to take a big piece of it to Rome. She took the ship and stopped in Cyprus. We know this from many historians, from Sozomenus, Cyril of Jerusalem, and Theodore of Cyprus, who say that she stopped in Cyprus. So Helen is remembered throughout the island with the great feast of St. Helen of Constantine. The monastery of Stavrouni is still visited today. One of the most curious stories about the island of Cyprus is definitely the story of Lazarus. We know that Lazarus died in Bethany and his tomb is there. After the resurrection, the Jews wanted to kill him. John's Gospel makes it clear. That's why Lazarus had to leave this land, took the ship and went to Cyprus. There he would have met Barnabas, who ordained him bishop of Kition, a very ancient city today located next to Larnaca. And there is his tomb. Emperor Leo VI, in 900, built a beautiful church taking away the relics of Lazarus to Constantinople. Saint Epiphanius narrates that Saint Lazarus was here for 30 years. His relics were buried in the tomb under the church. As we know, in Cyprus and elsewhere, many Orthodox churches were built over the tombs of saints. In 890, the relics were found in the tomb under the church. Emperor Leo VI, the wise man, asked that the relics be transferred to Constantinople, and only a part was left here, and we can see them in the shrine here behind me. Emperor Leo built this church as we see it today, around 890, following the Constantinopolitan architecture of that period. Of course, it is a great blessing for us here in Kition metropolis because we have Saint Lazarus as our guardian. He is also the patron saint of Larnaca, and there is a lot of devotion. Many people come here every day to pray. During the Lenten period on Lazarus Sunday, there is a big celebration in this church.
Siamo una comunità latini di circa 25.000.
We are a community of about 25,000 people. Only 10% have Cypriot citizenship, so about 2,500 people, while the rest are faithful who are on the island for work or in search of better living conditions. In our liturgical celebrations, we are a mosaic of cultures and languages. Cyprus is close to the Middle East, to Africa. Here the Pope will meet a Christian reality founded on apostolic bases, which today faces existential problems, the problem of migrants, refugees, reconciliation and dialogue, and also the important aspect of ecumenism.
Discorso di riconciliazione e dialogo, ma anche importante passaggio dell'ecumenismo.
The Pope will arrive in an island divided in two since 1974, the year of the Turkish invasion in the northern part of Cyprus. Even Nicosia, the capital, is cut in two by the so-called Green Line, the wall that separates the Greek and Turkish sides. Pope Francis will see it from his room's window. It is one of the last walls of Europe. In its small size, Cyprus contains a bit of all the dynamics which are very problematic of the Middle East and the Mediterranean in general. Political divisions that also become religious divisions. The wall is striking in this sense, the issue of migrants which concerns the entire Mediterranean. And Cyprus proportionally has the highest rate of migrants compared to any other European country. I find, however, also a lot of determination, especially from the small Christian community. Ecumenical relations with the Orthodox Church of Cyprus are excellent, with collaborations in several areas, including the use of Orthodox churches for Catholic worship, which are difficult to find elsewhere, stressed His Beatitude Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Patriarch of Jerusalem of the Latins. In his letter to the diocese, he invited the faithful to pray for this visit. To date, there are 6 parishes of the Latin Patriarchate in Cyprus. The motto of the Pope's visit to Cyprus is "Comforting each other in faith." It is inspired by the Apostle Barnabas, patron saint of the island, whose name can be translated as Son of the Consolation. This is the second time a Pope has visited Cyprus. The first was Benedict XVI in 2010. The Christian communities that are in Cyprus can be like a bridge between the East and the West, he said at the ecumenical celebration. A Cypriot Maronite community in communion with Rome has been reported since the 13th century. and the Franciscan presence in Cyprus dates back to the beginning of the order's history. Today, the Franciscan presence on the island of Cyprus is a very significant and active presence. We are present in Nicosia, Limassol and Larnaca in a stable form, with 3 parishes of the Latin Rite.
Con 3 parrocchie di rito latino, è una presenza significativa anche sul versante non solo.
It is a significant presence not only on the Greek side, but also on the Turkish side. Every week we go to celebrate Mass for the students, who are mainly African students, particularly from Nigeria, who study at the universities of Famagusta or at the Turkish University of Nicosia, but also for the other small Christian communities left in the Turkish area. I would say that it is a very significant and active presence. About 10 friars, all involved in the pastoral aspect, in the ecumenical aspect and also in the aspect of interreligious dialogue.
Tutti quanti impegnati sul versante pastorale, sul versante ecumenico e anche sul versante più generale di un dialogo interreligioso.
The solemn entrance of the custards of the Holy Land in Bethlehem this year brings with it hope of a new beginning, perhaps starting with the Christmas celebrations. This year, the message of Advent is that we must have hope, and I believe that we need hope. We come from 2 very difficult years, especially for our Christian community here in Bethlehem, because it has been left without work, without pilgrims, without income. In the face of this situation, there comes to us as a message of hope the word of Jesus, who precisely in the Gospel of the first Sunday of Advent tells us, "Within this situation do not be discouraged, but get back on your feet, lift up your gaze, because your deliverance is near." As per tradition and in keeping with the status quo, on Saturday, November the 27th, Brother Patton was welcomed near the monastery of St. Elijah. The car in which he was travelling crossed the wall that divides Jerusalem from Bethlehem at the height of Rachel's tomb. Brother Patton was welcomed by civil and religious authorities, scout groups and numerous faithful. The custards presided over the recitation of the first Vespers of the first Sunday of Advent in St. Catherine's Church. During this celebration there was a procession to the Grotto of the Nativity, where the first candle of Advent was lit.
Siamo alla prima domenica di Avvento e qui a Betlemme.
We are on the first Sunday of Advent, and here in Bethlehem it is experienced in a particularly intense way. We have lit the light of the Advent wreath candle in the manger, marking the path to Christmas. This light will shine for now here in Bethlehem, and then with Christmas it will spread throughout the world.
A Betlemme e poi col Natale si diffonderà in tutto il mondo.
The following day in the Latin parish, the custards of the Holy Land presided over the Mass of the first Sunday of Advent and the feast of St. Catherine, together with the Franciscan community and the local faithful.
Bethlehem هي بتلحم أول إشي من انتشار الدين المسيحي ولد فيها المسيح.
Bethlehem is the place where Christianity began, where Jesus was born. This is where the messenger of peace was born, the messenger of love to all, beyond religions. I hope that this year will bring peace everywhere, among those in conflict, and that the pandemic will end all over the world. This is my wish, peace above all.
وهذا اللي بتمناه بس سلام وبس سلام قبل كل شيء.
وإحنا لازم دائما نذكر ربنا على.
We must thank the Lord that we were born in this holy city, and we must defend our existence, keep our feasts and celebrate them all here in Bethlehem.
فيها بيتلحم كلنا مع بعض.
The beginning of the Advent festivities strengthens our faith that no matter how long the night is, the light of Christmas will still shine.